It's okay. Everybody thinks about quitting. We had a bad day, you think about quitting. You had a bad week, you think about quitting. Until you get something to drink. And you think, well, it's not so bad. Sometimes all you need to do is get a good night's sleep. Sometimes you need to go home for the weekend and just turn off your mind and get rested up again. By Monday, you're back to work again. Everybody thinks about quitting. It's okay to think about quitting. It's even okay to talk about quitting. How many times have you sat at home with your wife, your husband, and talked about quitting? You know, I'm thinking of quitting. You're thinking about quitting? Well, that's a good idea. Why don't you quit? I'm thinking about quitting. It's okay. You're not making any money anyway. Why don't you quit? You know. It's okay to talk about quitting. Just don't quit. All right? Talking about it is a way of getting it out of your system. You sort of you vent, all right? But you just don't do it. You can talk about it and think about it. It's a psychological release. But what causes us to think about quitting is dealing with difficult people, low probability prospects. Now, who is a low probability prospect? A low probability prospect is a difficult person who doesn't really see any need for your product or service. They probably don't have any money anyway, and they probably don't have the authority to buy. Not only that, they criticize you, and they complain about your product, and they compare you unfavorably to your competitors. Well, your competitor's cheaper than you. Your competitor's better than you. Your competitor's nicer than you. We've been dealing with your competitors. We're very happy working with your competitors, and we've heard terrible things about you anyway. In other words, they're negative towards you. They're not in a position to make a decision. Has anybody dealt with these kind of people, by the way? I'm going to tell you something about yourself. You are a thoroughly good person. You are a thoroughly good person. You have a good heart. You are honest. You're decent. You're hardworking. You're polite. You're respectful. You're helpful. You want to help people with your product or service. Isn't that true? Say yes. Okay. Then you have the right to expect that other people treat you the same way. If you treat them nicely and respectfully and kindly, and you're trying to help them with your product or service, because what you are is a traveling helper. The whole purpose of your selling is to find people who you can help to improve their life or work with your product. And so therefore you're trying to do them as much of a favor as they would do to you. So you deserve to be treated well. You deserve that people treat you nicely. And if they don't treat you nicely, I hereby give you permission to get up and walk out. Okay? Because it is dealing with difficult prospects that wears us down. It grinds us down. I'll tell you a quick story. General George Patton was in charge of the Third Army in World War II. Now, you may be familiar with military history, but he was the most effective tank commander, combat general that the Americans had. He was very, very formidable, very good, very fast, very clever, and was able to capture something like 350,000 German troops in a series of brilliant maneuvers that have never been matched before. And in World War II in Europe, the soldiers were being fed in like meat into a grinder and were all being killed. As a matter of fact, most of them didn't think that they would live. However, after the D-Day invasion, soldier after soldier was applying to transfer into Patton's army. They were applying for transfers to get into Patton's army. Now, why is that? Well, the answer was that Patton had a philosophy, and that is, don't waste your men. Is take care of the men as much as possible. So when he started an attack, he would have orders in advance that if the attack had not been successful in 2 hours, to stop the attack. Because what he found was this, that after 2 hours, the casualty rates would start to go up at a rapid rate. That was his break point. So the attack would start at the end of 2 hours. If it wasn't successful, they cut it off. And what happened, because men would get tired, they'd make mistakes, start to shoot each other, you know. And, you know, it happens because it's hard work, I can tell you. Anyway, it meant that the casualty rates in Patton's Third Army were lower than any other army on the Western Front. If you got into Patton's army, your chance of living through the war was far greater. Now here's the metaphor or the analogy that I'm drawing. In selling, if you are dealing with difficult people and you cut it off quickly, you keep yourself up. But if you spend time dealing with difficult people, they wear you down. They tire you out. They depress you and they make you angry. You go home and your self-esteem is down. You feel like a loser. You feel like you're not very good at selling. So from now on, if you find that you're dealing with a difficult person, break it off quickly. Say, you know, this is probably not the right product for you, but thank you very much for your time, and you have a wonderful life. Okay? Okay? And if you do that, what's going to happen naturally? If you stop spending time with difficult prospects, what will you end up spending more? Who will you end up spending more time with? Good prospects. And you know, have you noticed, if you talk to a prospect, what is your name? Henry? Okay. I'm talking to Henry, and Henry's interested, and he's asking questions. We're going back and forth. And Henry can't buy today for some reason, so a sale doesn't take place. But you still feel happy afterwards because you had a good conversation with a nice person. Isn't that true? So you feel good, and you're out, you're ready to go to the next call, even though it wasn't successful, it wasn't the right thing for Henry. That's not the problem. The problem is dealing with difficult people. People who don't appreciate you and people who are not nice to you. So from now on, for the rest of your career, don't deal with difficult people. Because there's several reasons. Number one, they're not going to buy anyway. So you're wasting your time. Number two, if they do buy, they won't pay. Number three, if they do buy and they do pay, they complain all the time. They're always complaining, always calling you up and having you come over so they can complain to you. You know, they're what are called customers from hell. And you all know what I'm talking about. And there are many companies today that have done this analysis that we're talking about, and they've decided to fire their customers. They've decided that there are some customers that are not worth it, and they call them up and they say, you know, we would not like to have your business anymore. We would like you to go and buy from our competitor and ruin their life. Because the most important thing you have is the fact that you're up, you're optimistic, you're positive, you're happy, you're high energy, you're a nice person, you are well informed about your product, you have something valuable to sell at a good price, and your job is to get to the people who will appreciate it. Now, in a good market, everybody's buying. In a bad market, not so many people are buying, so you're going to have to call on more people in order to make the same number of sales. So you don't weep and cry. You say, well, this is just the way it is. If it's hot outside, you don't say, wah, it's so hot. Wah, wah. It's like weather. The economy is like the weather. You can't do anything about it. You just adjust to it, right? And you don't complain about it. You say, business is bad. No. You say, well, business is slower today than it was before. But when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And here's a wonderful thing. If you can succeed in today's economy, when the economy does turn around, and it always does, you will be so far ahead. You will be smarter, you will be quicker, you'll be more determined, you'll be more focused, you'll be more confident. So look upon it as a challenge to make you strong. Just like a runner will often run with weights or carry weights. Imagine that this is a weight that you're carrying, and when the economy turns around, you take off the weight and you will be wonderful at your field. So look upon it as a challenge. And people say, business is bad. Isn't that good? Say, that's good. That's good. Isn't that great? Because all the weaklings quit. Leaves more money for the professionals. Someone says, boy, business is hard. Sales are hard. You say, yeah, why don't you quit? Yeah. Get out of here. Okay. So prospecting means to ask, is this a good prospect? And when you call people, when you prospect for people, say, hello, this is Brian Tracy. I'm with ABC Company, and I think we can help you. And whenever you prospect, always talk about the result or the benefit of your product or service. You see, a good prospect is interested in the result or benefit of what you sell. A poor prospect always says, how much is it? How much is it? How much is it? Well, you don't even know what it is yet, but how much is it? Well, that's too much. Well, it's too much for what? Well, whatever it is, it's too much. You know what I'm talking about, Henry? Drives you crazy. You say, come here a little bit closer. Whack. Ow, 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 ow. You know, you want to hit. But a good prospect, when you say, I think we can save you a good deal of money in your word processing costs, or I think that we can really speed up your time of delivery, or we can really improve what you're doing and give you better service at the same price. A good prospect wants to know how. Well, how does it work, or what is it? A poor prospect says, how much is it? I can't afford it. Cost too much. Business is bad. Life's a bitch and then you die, you know. So it's really important. So prospecting is important. Now, I want to show you what I call the golden triangle of selling. Now, the golden triangle of selling is my own invention. And it's, I think, basically the key to modern selling. It has three parts. And let's put the customer or the prospect in the center. And it has three parts, and the first part, part one, is what I call relationship selling. Now, relationship selling is the key to success now and for the future. The very best salespeople are very good. We call them relationship experts. They're very, very good at forming high-quality relationships with people that they meet. We say that there's two parts. The first part of selling is prospecting. The second part is developing rapport or establishing a friendly relationship with the customer. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. My friend Lou Holtz says whenever you meet a new person in business or even personally, they only want to know the answer to one question. Do you care about me? Do you care about me? They don't care about your product. Forget your product. Do you care about me? How can you show a person that you care about them? How can you show a person that you care about them more than just wanting to make a sale? Right from the time you meet them. Well, okay, I'll give you several ideas. Obviously my coming here was an emergency. So they flew me in on a jet. When you meet a person for the first time, recognize that everybody's busy. So what I always do is I say, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. As soon as you do that, you immediately separate yourself from the average person who just starts talking. I thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. People immediately stop because people don't recognize how busy they are. Nobody appreciates anybody else's time. Now, whenever you phone a person and you get through to the person, the very first thing you say is, hello, this is Brian Tracy, or this is Henry. Is this a good time to talk? I need about 2 minutes of your time to ask you a couple of quick questions. Is this a good time for you? As soon as you say that, the person stops because it's obvious you're a professional. You must be in the top 10% or moving there very quickly because this is how the top 10% talk. This is based on thousands of studies. The top 10% are very respectful of people's time. They don't say, hi, this is Brian Tracy, I want to call. No. What they do is say, hi, this is Brian Tracy. Is this a good time for you? Now, I do this with my best friends. When I call them and I get through to them in business, they take the call because it's me, and I say, hi, Mike, is this a good time for you? I need about 2 minutes. And sometimes I say, you know, Brian, somebody just came into my office. I got 2 other people here. The building's on fire. Most cases, something's going on. Remember, every single call that you make on a customer is an interruption. Every single call you make is an interruption. You are interrupting them from something that at that moment is more important than you are. So what you do is just slow down a bit and you say, is this a good time? And if you meet them face to face, you say, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. They'll immediately relax and realize you're a professional. And they'll treat you very differently because you're treating them very differently. What you're saying is, I care about you. I care about you as a person, and I know how busy you are. So relationship selling is based on establishing a high-quality relationship. And I'll give you the other 2 parts of the triangle, and I want to come back to relationship selling because it really is the key to your future. The second part of the triangle, set number 2, is what we call consultative selling. And consultative selling is where you position yourself as a problem solver. You position yourself as a consultant. I'll explain this in a second. And the third part of selling is what we call educational selling, where you don't sell as much as you educate or teach. You teach the person, you learn the person's situation with questions, and then you teach them how your product or service can help them in a cost-effective way. You see, teaching is really the key to the future of selling. You're not trying to sell. You're not trying to talk people out of money. You're trying to teach them how they can improve their life or their work with what you do. The number one reason that people buy your product or service is they understand how much better off they can be. The number one reason why they don't is because they don't understand how much better off they can be because you didn't teach them. You may have assumed that they know, but you didn't teach them. Well, let me show you something that I think is one of the great breakthroughs in the psychology of selling, and it has to do with what is called positioning. Now, I know you're all familiar with positioning. Positioning is a trend in marketing started by Al Ries and Jack Trout, who wrote a book some 20 years ago called Positioning: The Battle for the Mind of the Customer. And positioning says that here's a customer, typical customer. Okay? And in the back of the customer's mind, there's a series of file boxes, very much like the boxes behind the check-in desk of one of the old hotels, okay, for mail messages and keys. Now, when the customer sees you, okay, here's you, or hears you, or thinks about you, the customer then opens a box for you. This is your box in the customer's mind. And by the way, you're exactly the same. The first impression is the most lasting impression. That's why we say you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. But whatever is in that customer's box determines how the customer reacts to you, thinks about you, feels about you, responds to you, takes your calls, buys from you, doesn't buy from you, and so on. So, in this box is you. The question is, what's in the customer's box with regard to you? Now, in positioning, what we do is we say that your job is to shape this positioning. We say that perceptions, the customer's perception of you, equals the customer's reality of you. I'll give you an example. I was in Shanghai earlier this week, and this fellow, nice guy, not very well dressed, square head, looked like his head had been put inside a box and then it grew. Square head, nice guy, not particularly handsome, not very well dressed, average guy. And he came in, and Richard and Patrick said, "You've got to meet this guy." And I said, "Great, I mean, wonderful." They said, "This guy was just written up in Forbes as one of the richest men in China. He developed a software program that had been bought by a major company, and they paid him $46 million cash. He's one of the richest young entrepreneurs in China, and he's come to this seminar." And they brought him in, and I said, "Wow, how are you? Would you like a business card? Would you like 2 business cards? Would you like, would you like several for your friends?" My perception of him, although he is very ordinary looking, my perception of him is, woo, because he's so successful in such a difficult market and written up in Forbes magazine, highly respected, probably richer than almost the whole rest of the audience put together. Can you see what I mean? My perception of him. Now, what if somebody said, "Just joking, he's the taxi driver"? Because he looked like it. I mean, he could have been a taxi driver. But because they had created a positioning of him in my mind, my picture in my mind of this guy, when they said, you're going to meet this guy when he comes in, he's one of the richest men in China, I'm thinking, wow. And he's very ordinary looking, but his perception was, wow. Anything he said, I was going to listen to him. The point is this, is it doesn't matter the truth of the perception. A person's perception is reality. What is your name, sir? Pardon? Dedian? Daniel. Okay. Daniel, say, "I fly jet planes." Just say, "I fly jets. I fly jets. And I run marathons." Okay. So now, if Daniel said to me, "I fly jets and I run marathons," I'd say, okay. I'm not going to argue with him. I mean, he seems like an honest person. If he says it, then I believe it. Okay? So I accept what he says as the truth. So when you meet customers for the first time, what you say to your customer, they accept as the truth. If you say, "My name is Brian Tracy, and I believe very much in the importance of good relationships with my customers. Our philosophy is to give superb customer service to our customers." People say, "Okay." You say it's true? No, I say it's true. And then we watch to make sure that what you say is consistent with what you said. So in interviewing tens of thousands of customers, we have asked them, how do you think and talk about the top salespeople? Now, we know who the top salespeople are when we ask them, and we know who the medium-sized salespeople are, and so on. We find that salespeople have 3 positioning statements, or customers have 3 positioning statements about top salespeople. Number 1 is they see them as friends. They like them. They feel they're good people. They say, "This person cares about me more than they care about making a sale." Number 2, they say, "I view this person as a consultant more than as a salesperson. I see him or her more as an advisor, a counselor, a guide, and so on." And number 3, they see this person more as a teacher or a helper, a person who shows them how they can be better off. So your job is to create these 3 perceptions. The perception of being a high-quality relationship, an advisor and helper, a consultant, a problem solver, and a person who teaches rather than sells. If a customer sees you like that, they will buy from you, they will buy from you more readily, they will buy from you more regularly, and they will recommend you to their friends because they want their friends to buy from you as well. So your job is to influence this perception. And everything that you say counts. Here's the rule. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything that you say counts. Everything that you do counts. Every interaction counts. We say that when you're talking to customers, you're talking about their money. And money is a very emotional issue. So they are hypersensitive to everything you say or do. If you say you'll be there at 10 o'clock and you come at 10 minutes after 10, they remember that. Is not on time for appointments, therefore can't be trusted. Is not dependable, therefore product is no good, therefore company is no good. Therefore prices are too high, therefore too dangerous to buy from this person. You say, well, how are you just coming late? I mean, how? Because you said you'd be there at 10. And you didn't come at 10, so you didn't do what you said you would do. And if a person has half a brain and they're nervous, then what they do is they say that you probably won't deliver the product on time, and you probably won't service it if you say you will, and nothing else you say is true either. People say, well, what does it matter? Customers, you were talking about money. Money is very emotional. As they say, money's not the most important thing in life, but it's way up there with oxygen. You know.